This episode of Harvey Brownstone Interviews is brought to you by the Harvey Brownstone Talk Show Blend Coffee, available at hollywoodblends.com. Everyone's saying it's the best coffee they've ever tasted. Why not give it a try and see for yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's special guest is a highly acclaimed actor who's brought us many great performances in iconic movies like Johnny Got His Gun, for which he received a Golden Globe Award nomination for Most Promising Newcomer. He also starred in The Last Picture Show, Love and Pain and the Whole Damn Thing, The Paper Chase, Operation Daybreak, Rollercoaster, Texasville, Elephant, Paradise, Texas, and many more. On television, you've seen him in dozens of shows, movies, and miniseries, including The Story of David, The Moneychangers, East of Eden, Death Game, The Face of Alexandre Dumas, The Man in the Iron Mask, and of course, in the early 90s, he starred in the popular children's TV show Land of the Lost. He guest starred in many classic TV shows, including The Twilight Zone, That 70s Show, NCIS, Grey's Anatomy, Private Practice, and The Hitchhiker, for which he won a Cable Ace Award for Best Actor in a Dramatic Series. And on the stage, he starred on Broadway in 5th of July. He's won many awards, including the Grand Jury Prize for Best Supporting Actor at the New York International Independent Film and Video Festival for his performance in Mixed Blessings. And in 2022, he and his fellow cast members won a Golden Reel International Film Festival Award for their work in the highly acclaimed movie Chinaman's Chance, America's Other Slaves. And in 2010, he received the German Independence Honorary Award at the Oldenburg International Film Festival. And if all of that weren't enough, our guest is also an accomplished author, having recently released his first novel entitled The Pier. I'm delighted and deeply honored to welcome Mr. Timothy Bottoms to our show. Timothy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
I'm fascinated by the fact that you landed a leading role in your very first movie, Johnny Got His Gun. You beat out Peter Fonda, Anthony Geary, and David Soul, among many others. So there you were with no previous film experience, working with Dalton Trumbo, Jason Robards, Donald Sutherland, Marsha Hunt. Where did you find the confidence to deliver such a sensitive and very nuanced performance?
Harvey, I have to go back to the beginning when I got fascinated with the theater. And I was an avid moviegoer. My father would take us to the movies all the time when we were kids. And it was a magical place. So this was all when I was young. I've got a lot of impressions I recall when I was young. And I think that's why The Pier was 8 years old, kind of a magical time for me. But I got invited to audition for a play. I never would have done it myself, but it was a friend of my father's who had a daughter who had the lead in this show. It was in junior high school. And I was so scared of getting onto the stage. I shook like a scared rabbit. My voice was going like this. But there was this great woman there named Marjorie Luke. In fact, the theater is named after her now. And she was a mentor in the theater. And she just sort of put her arms around me and encouraged me. And I played Little Abner. I had the part of Little Abner and Little Abner. You know, if I had my druthers. And that just hooked me. And it progressed into what we called the Youth Theater in Santa Barbara, California. Jack Nakano, another very important name. So many names, so many people to thank to get me to a position where I could actually audition for a movie. So progressed to high school, and I was doing Romeo and Juliet, and I was playing Romeo, and it was a professional, semi-professional production. Rather, we had professional actors in it with students at Santa Barbara High School. The Santa Barbara High School theater department was one of the great theater departments in the United States for productions of plays and musicals and things. So many actors came from there. Anyway, this agent came backstage, and I guess he knew Jack or somebody, and somebody had said something. And he said, I think you could be a star in Hollywood if you came down south. I talked to my mom about it. My mom was really my big cheerleader, my mother. And so we gave it a shot. And actually, my first audition was for a television show called High Chaparral. Well, it was a television series, Western, shot in Tucson, Arizona. Lynn Stallmaster was the casting agents. And when I went down there, Bob sent me out to see him, Bob Raison. I think he became the first manager in Hollywood, Bob Raison. Lynn Stallmaster, the casting person, said, Tim, you're going to need film. Producers want to see film. And at that time, in the late 60s, early 70s, nobody wanted to really do television if you wanted to be in movies. There was these two different opposing mediums, but they really are the same. In fact, now television stars are huge movie stars. I mean, it changed dramatically. And I'm one of the young guys. I'm only 73, so I'm a baby when it came to the end of the golden age, right? And so I got an audition, and I had to jump on a horse and take a rifle. And so I did the screen test, these big old horses, and it was Warner Brothers Studio. Cameron Mitchell, he came in, it was a Western set. It was in one of those big studios on the lot. And they brought these horses in. These big old horses would follow you anywhere on the studio for a jelly donut. Not kind of like the stock I used to cowboy a lot when I was younger. And worked a lot of open range feral horses. So I kind of knew what was going on. Not at that point in my life, but I did have a horse, and I was roping and stuff. And so he said, great. And I met the head guy upstairs in Warner Brothers, and he said, smoking a big cigar, had these nice saddles. It's a beautiful thing. Oh, he had a big buckle on, big producer, Warner Brothers. He said, kid, I want to offer you this job. Yeah, 26 weeks or something like that in Tucson. I'm going to get $7,000 a week. Well, my dad was making $16,000 a year working for a technological engineering and military planning operation in Santa Barbara, California. And that was just incredible. But it was television. And I wanted to be in the movies. What a mistake. So I said, no, I just want the film. As Lynn Stallmaster said, and he got all flustered. He said, kid, if you don't take this job, I just spent $12,000 on that screen test. If you don't take this job, you're never going to work in this town again. Never. And I went home and cried. And my mom was saying, it's okay, it's okay. And then Bob Raison called. He said, boy, why'd you blow that? Okay, there's this job happening. There's this writer named Dalton Trumbo, and he's got this movie that he's trying to make, and it's very controversial because at that time it was the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, and this is a very anti-war film. And there is a history of Dalton Trumbo. Many of you who watch this can look him up. He was quite a character. And I got in the car, went down, auditioned, and got the part. Halfway through the rehearsal, I got the part. It was so funny because it just happened. And I think it happened because I had so much experience in the theater. So my rehearsals were competent.
Well, Mr. Trumbo told you to just be yourself.
Yes, he did. He said when we were talking about acting, he said, the reason I cast you, Tim, is because I wanted a young man who turns into a mature man in this picture. I want to see a boy go into a man, basically. And you're perfect for that. So don't act. Just deal with the situations as you would as yourself. Don't act. Sort of a method acting, right? Which everybody's trying to do. That was that simple, Harvey. It was that simple. So I just went along with the show, and before I knew it, movies were happening and people were wanting me. And that was 50 years ago, Harvey.
When you were making the Last Picture Show, your parents were in the process of divorcing, which is always a traumatic experience for children.
Yeah.
How do you think your emotional state of mind during that time affected your performance?
Well, you would know. You were a judge for years dealing with these situations. You would know a lot about that. Oh, God, it affected me. I look upon it differently now that I'm older. But there was the excitement and of being in the movies, but at the same time divorcing myself from the script and living in that world to what was really happening at home. And my mom was always crying, and it was all about money, and it was a tough time. And so I was giving as much as I was making and going from one to next. And I got very close with my brother Sam at that point. I was always pretty close to Sam, who has passed now.
Now, I've heard you say in interviews, Timothy, that Peter Bogdanovich's wife, Polly Platt, deserved much of the credit for the
She was
success.
wonderful. Oh, God. Going in to meet Peter, he had the ascot thing, and this was at the BBS studios. Bob Raison got the call from them. This was right after 5 Easy Pieces. And so Robert Raison was connected to them. And I got offered the part without auditioning. Peter wanted me to play the other part, Jeff Bridges' part, but I'm so glad Jeff did it because Jeff was so good.
But why did you say that Polly Platt deserved much of the credit for the success?
She was always there, taking care of him, talking to the actors. When we all got cast, she dressed us all. She was always going to locations. She was always there with Peter, and they were, she was his angel. She really was. Helped him with all the decisions. Plus, she was pregnant, and she had a baby. And they were going through a heated eventual divorce as well during the picture. Well, my parents were going through a divorce in the picture. So it was, how does a 19-year-old divorce himself from all of that and concentrate on what he's doing in front of a camera? That was a challenge. And I don't think I accomplished it. I think I failed. And I think maybe that's why the success of the performances was what it was because I was actually going through all that crap. And it just filtered through me into my acting.
In 1991, you produced a documentary called Picture This, The Times of Peter Bogdanovich in Archer City, Texas, about the making of Texasville, which of course was the sequel to The Last Picture Show. Many critics said that your documentary about making the movie was actually better than the movie itself. What did you think of that comment?
Well, that's an honor, but we have to hand it all to George Hickenlooper. We came up with the idea only because of the success of that film for all of us. So he was a filmmaker and a friend, and I said, let's do it. Where are we going to find the money? So I had to put up $75,000 of my salary in exchange to do it. And I'm so glad I did because it is a good little film, and it helped George in his success as a filmmaker. And it was my brother Sam who was part of it, who then helped Sam meet with Francis's wife, and he edited her documentary about Apocalypse Now. So I think we all help each other in these things, and it's not a better or worse than life. It seems so. That's why I'm sort of out of it now. It seemed like it became so competitive, and
Was the business not always competitive?
It probably always was. I just wasn't aware of it.
Actually,
it was always more fun for me than anything else, and creativity was what was about. It wasn't about, hey kid, you do the work, I'll watch all the money. And I lost a lot.
You lost a lot of money in this business?
Yeah. The business managers I gave a lot away.
Oh, Timothy, that's heartbreaking, actually.
No, I'm fine. We're fine. Everything's lovely. In fact, when I was a kid, going back again, I found this ranch. It's up in the big San Lucia Mountains. And I used to be a hunter when I was a kid. And I killed this little buck on the ridge, and clouds were coming over early September. I was in junior high school. And they cleared, and I heard a rooster crow. And down below me was this little farm. Well, I came back. I took the deer back and hung it up. And the old man, Roberto, said, "Hey, no, you don't go there. It's very dangerous." I snuck back in there. I ended up going back there every summer. And after my success in a film we shot with Warren Oates and Lou Gossett, Northwest Territories, at Baffin Island, I got the letter I could buy it. And so I bought my dream, and I still have it. And it keeps me sane, and that's where I live now. And I live here with my partner Brenda for the last 15 years. No matter where I would go in the world, and I got to do pictures all over in different countries, I'd always go back. I'd go home, get wherever it was, usually Montecito or Santa Barbara, and I'd go up there and I would sleep for 3 days. And it's been the most consistent investment in my life, and I love it, and I feel so lucky.
Yeah, you really are, because you found serenity, you're grounded, you're centered. And I want to go back for a moment to Texasville. In 1992, I'm sure you're aware that Peter Bogdanovich released the director's cut of Texasville. He added 28 minutes, including much, much more of you. Did you see the recut version?
No.
Got to get it, because you're in a whole bunch of scenes that got cut initially.
Peter was given an award here in San Luis Obispo, and I got to hang out with him. In fact, it was so interesting because Billy Paxton was there as well. And I had worked with Billy not with him, but on one of the productions in Vancouver when he was just starting out. And they're both gone now. In fact, well, it's just, we're just remembering now, aren't we?
As you know, I'm a retired judge, and
Yes.
I want you to know that when I was in first year law in 1977, we were all obsessed with The Paper Chase. I really believe that movie helped me and many generations of lawyers get through law school. So I just have to thank you for that, Timothy.
Well, that was Jim Bridges, a fantastic director and writer. Oh my God. Yeah. And
did you have fun making The Paper Chase?
Yes. Jimmy Cagney was supposed to play the part that John Houseman ended up doing, but he was too sick. And I had auditioned in Santa Barbara High School for one of his lieutenants to go to Juilliard. A couple of students from Santa Barbara went there as actors, and that was the place to go, either that or RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London. And I had the possibility of getting a kinsmanship program to go there. That was the highlight of helping cast John Houseman.
Were you ever offered any part of the TV series, The Paper Chase?
No, I wasn't. I would love to have had it. No, but the young man did a good job.
Yeah, but he wasn't you. You worked with such a great cast in the Moneychangers: Kirk Douglas,
Yes.
Christopher Plummer, Ann Baxter, Ralph Bellamy, Joan
Oh,
Collins,
yeah.
so many more. When you were just a young actor working with those great legends, did you ever get the chance to ask any of them for career advice?
Well, I was so lucky living in Santa Barbara at that time and doing this youth theater programs. We had all these mentors. Mine was Bradford Dillman, but oh God, they were all in town. Dame Judith Anderson was there. I was into the script, not into who they were and what they had done. But I had to focus on what I was doing because I was the most important thing in the world at that time. That's one of the things about acting. All the actors think they're the most important. Well, many do, and very impressed with the table reads. I got to sit at the table for the initial table reads on that show.
Well, you co-starred with the great legend, recently departed Maggie Smith in Love and Pain and the Whole Damn Thing. Can you share some memories of working with her, Timothy?
I went to the movies in Santa Barbara. I think it was the Arlington Theater, the big showcase for the Santa Barbara Film Festival. It's beautiful Spanish style with one of these great movie houses, with fantastic stars on the ceiling and things like that. And I watched the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and I fell in love with Maggie Smith. What was I, 17? Just Well, thank you, Jack Nakano, because we got to go down to Los Angeles and to become guest ushers. So our little theater group, the 8 of us, went down and we ushered at the Dorothy Chandler, I think it was, or the Amundsen or Mark Taper, one of those theaters in town. And I got to watch 2 performances. You know, we sit in the back with our flashlights and we had to have black clothes on. And I got to go backstage and I was just in awe. And she didn't know me from Adam. Well, guess what? Alan Pakula says, I want you to do this picture with Angela Lansbury called The Widower. Well, Angela passed on it. Maggie took it. And I was just like, oh my God. And so this is a secret. I got to work with my first heartthrob when I was 17. And she was beautiful. And we hung out with Jeffrey Unsworth, shot it. He does all the Bond films and stuff. I mean, it was with this great English crew. And we traveled around Spain. And we were out in Manzanares doing these things with the bicycles through the rocks out there where they do all the Westerns. And the Army's it's part of a military reservation. The Army's having shooting practice. And Pakula got so upset. And he said, you get on the phone. You call Franco. You tell him, who's the leader of the country, you tell him either he wants to make pictures in this country or not, because we're leaving and going to Italy or whatever like that. And they Pakula shut down Franco in the Army for.
But did you tell Maggie that she was your first heartthrob?
Oh, no.
I'll bet she would have loved to know that.
Oh, she probably would have. What was she said? Oh, dear. And roll those beautiful eyes.
Well, you know, in the early 70s, you frequently played a sensitive, slightly awkward, naive, very adorable young man. Did you feel at that time that you were being typecast?
That's who I was. Yeah, I mean, that's what the movies are, you know, just the situations and just act yourself. That's the best way to go. Don't try to act. Leave that to Anthony Hopkins. He's the best in the world.
You mean to tell me that you don't really feel you were acting in all those movies?
Oh, of course I was. But the technique was to make it look like you weren't. That's what the directors wanted. And the only person you can trust on a film set is the director. Really.
So did you mind being typecast?
Oh, God, no. No, I never thought about that. I had a manager who was doing this. And there was a lawyer and, you know.
In 1978, you co-starred with one of our recent guests, Marie Osmond, in a TV movie called The Gift of Love. And she did not have much acting experience at that time. What was she like to work with?
Oh, hello, Marie. Oh, gosh, what a beautiful girl. Woman, mother now. Oh, it was so much fun. That was she had her own private ice rink. And I mean, her mother was really something. Tim? Yes, Marie. Mom wants to see you in the motorhome. Oh, okay. What's this all about? We trudge outside. We walk into this giant motorhome. And we walk all the way to the end. Have you ever walked into a giant motorhome and had to walk all the way to the end with this woman sitting in the back just looking at me? I guess she was a sergeant in the Army at one time or something. So she says, Marie says, "It's my mom." And the mother says, "How are you going to do it?" Do what? How are you going to kiss her? So we had to do our initial rehearsal of our scene where we kiss in front of her mother first, before the director or anybody else. And success. Okay, time for hamburgers.
You passed the test. That's pretty impressive. She was a very protective mother. Well, I must tell you, Timothy, I absolutely loved East of Eden, the miniseries. You played Adam Trask, which is the part played by Raymond Massey in the movie, and you had to age 30 years in that role. Were you influenced at all by Raymond Massey's performance?
No, it was Harvey Hart, a Canadian director, who did that. He had the faith in me. It was Fox too, I think. I watched it, but no, my brother Sam was playing my son, for God's sake.
Yes, he did. And he passed away tragically in 2008 at the age of 53. He was a great actor. I'm so sorry for your loss, Timothy.
Oh, thank you.
Now, in 1987, you and your three brothers, Joseph, Sam, and Ben, made a TV movie together called Island Sons, which was supposed to be a pilot for a TV series. What was it like for the four of you working together?
Well, that was great. Yes, we were going to take over the spot and the crew and the machine for Magnum PI, and it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it, but it fell apart. There was a regime change in the studio, and we were.
Boy, I've heard that story all too often, let me tell you. Yeah. Now, in 1984, you starred in a very important TV movie called Love Leads the Way, in which you played one of the first blind people in America to have a seeing eye dog and to fight to remove the legal barriers that were in existence at the time. How difficult was it to portray a blind person?
That was interesting. Eva Marie Saint. Oh, she was wonderful. And she lived in town in Santa Barbara. She was one of our mentors at the high school when we did those theater programs. I got a police dog, a well-trained police dog. And it wasn't a seeing eye dog, but boy, this dog just bonded to me, and it wasn't that difficult. It was like speaking to you now, but just not looking at you, or the eyes wandering. That was as simple as that.
Now, you've portrayed President George W. Bush 3 times, Timothy. That's My Bush in 2001. Yes. And in the Crocodile Hunter Collision Course in 2002, and in a very serious and excellent TV movie, DC 9/11, Time of Crisis. Has President Bush ever told you what he thought of your impersonation?
I don't think so. I haven't heard from him. Although we did have an interesting experience with one of his daughters. I was taking my daughter to Costa Rica to a environmental school where she got to live on the treetops for 2 weeks. A little island, Boca something. So we went to Panama, and then we got on this little commuter plane. Well, there was a little trouble getting on the commuter plane because there were all these guys, short haircuts. And we got on the plane, and I noticed a couple of them walked right by the guards with knives on them, which was like, oh, wow. So halfway through, we're taking pictures, and my daughter's scared. Oh, Mom and Dad, I'm going to miss you. And my daughter turns around to say that, and she looks right over my shoulder, and she says, Dad. And I'm looking towards you, and she's looking, and she says, that's George Bush's daughter in the back of the plane. George Bush's daughter in the back of the plane. I go, what? I turn around, and as I turn around, these guys all look at me. So I just turned right around. She was in the back, and she had just come from Argentina and was on her way up to some friends that have bananas or something.
Did you get to talk to her?
That's the closest I've ever gotten to a Bush. Oh, no, excuse me. I went to a baseball game with my son, Bodie, and George's dad and mom were just a few rows down below us.
Well, I would imagine that making DC 9/11, Time of Crisis, was an incredibly intense experience. How did you deal with that emotionally?
I had worked with that director before. Or no, I didn't. I had met him in the Philippines. I was doing a picture with John Philip Law in the Philippines. And turns out he was the director chosen for it. And we shot that in Toronto during the SARS epidemic. So we were stuck in that big hotel. Had to deal with that. Had to deal with the fact that my son was in a ski accident and in a coma for 3 days. And that my wife at the time was nursing a man that had fallen in front of her on the ski slope and died in her arms. All the time I'm playing this tragedy that's happening. So I had a lot of interesting things in my life going on while we were trying to make this serious film based on the documentary footage of the 9/11 crisis. But the best fun was with Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and That's My Bush. The most fun I've ever had in any television or movie experience in my life was with those two gentlemen.
Well, I'm glad you had some fun because you've made some intense movies. I mean, look at 2003. You were in a very powerful movie called Elephant, based on the Columbine High School shooting. You played the alcoholic father of the best friend of one of the shooters. Was that emotionally difficult for you?
The whole concept was the director, Gus Van Sant. I auditioned for his casting agent, and he gave me a call. It was during my brother Sam's wedding. And I got a call. Tim, I want you to do the picture. Oh, I was so excited. So I was excited to be in the movie. It didn't really matter what it was about. But and the way he treated it, it wasn't bloody, but it was shocking as hell. It was shocking as hell. And so my part in the beginning was the dysfunctional family. Let's go hunting. I can use my Jap 241 my dad brought back from Truck Island, which is all true. I mean, that was the deer rifle that I killed the deer on the hill where I found my ranch.
Well, I tell you, that's a very, very intense movie. It was an important movie. And sometimes you play more real people besides President Bush. You
Yeah.
played General Eisenhower's chief of staff, Walter Bedell Smith, in a TV movie called Ike Countdown to D-Day. How do you prepare to portray a real person?
I talked to my father, who knew a lot of the generals, and one of them was Walter Bedell Smith. I grew up, my dad had a lot of friends that were military, who he worked with, mostly generals, I think. Serious guy. I saw some of the pictures of him. He wore this 45 over his chest, That was the producer of DC 9/11 Time of Crisis. Said, Tim, you did such a good job. I want to offer you this job in New Zealand. That was great. So basically that's what happened. I don't know if Tom Selleck really wanted me to play the part, but the producer did. So that won over on that one. And Tom was very good in it. In fact, I would hang out with Tom, and he had shaved his mustache, right? And his short hair. And we were in this sort of dark restaurant bar in Auckland, and just having some drinks and having a dinner and a joke. And this gal comes over and says, "Oh, Yanks, what are you guys doing here?" Oh, and I had to speak. Because Tom was so shy. We're making this movie. Yeah. Oh, wow. Who's in it? So and so and so. And Tom Selleck. Oh, she said, Tom Selleck. She's looking right at him. Oh, I'd loved it if he would come in here. And I could see Tom turning red. And I was laughing. I was peeing in my pants, actually. She leaves. We walk out. Tom's shaking his head. Man, I thought the girls just love me. Now I know it's just because of the mustache.
Oh, I think it was a little more than that, I'll tell you. But the mustache was his signature look. There was a movie you made in 2006 called Paradise, Texas.
Yes.
You played this actor, Matt Cameron, who was struggling to find a balance between his career and his family life. But you've never had that problem in your own life, have you?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, right after the man who wrote it, or not the writer, the producer, was coming through Santa Barbara and wanted to visit, and I was in the heat of a separation, and so I was going through all of that, and I told him about it, and he said, "Well, it sounds rough," and he just passed on by. So yes, I've gone through that, and it's not fun. I've been through 2 marriages. I have 4 children that I know of, and I finally found someone. We have a partnership for the last 15 years, and it's very comfortable.
You seem very, very content with your life. I want to read you something you said recently in an interview. You said, I'm quoting you here, "I do not consider myself that good of an actor. I take dialogue and direction given, and I try to make choices that please the director. My job is to be on time, know my lines, and take direction and hit my mark." So, Timothy, I have to ask you, do you ever actually watch your performances on screen? Because I don't think you know how good you are.
Oh, thank you. Yes, of course I've watched them, and I've even been allowed to watch some of the dailies, depending on the picture and the director and how well we all get along.
I mean, I know you're a humble guy, but how
Mm.
could you think you're not that good of an actor when you've received so many accolades over the years?
Isn't that interesting? Self-worth, just never good enough.
Are you proud of the career you've had?
Oh, I feel very fortunate, very lucky. I don't know if I'm proud of it, but I feel very fortunate to be given the opportunity. But I had a lot of time in school learning the craft. Theater was everything to me. And I think it's probably one of the greatest art forms there is, live theater, especially in the round. Oh, God. And there was a guest you had recently, Joe Bologna's wife, Renee Taylor, who wrote a play called, I think it had to be you. I got to do that with Carol Kane at the Cherry Orchard Playhouse in the round. Talk about an actress, Carol Kane. Oh, my God. But what a great play. And that was one of the great experiences. Well, that and the play I did on Broadway for a short time, the Lanford Wilson play, the 4th of July, or was it the 5th, the 4th of July? I literally was going through horrible situation that I created with, I feel like I'm the one that makes, I'm my worst enemy.
Yeah,
Well,
you're really hard on yourself.
I
But
am, I am, and I'm trying to change that.
well, I'm glad I'm here to tell you that you are an exceptionally gifted actor. You're very, very beloved by the public. And now, in addition to acting and your work with the horses at your beloved ranch in Big Sur, you've written your first novel, The Pier, which is about a young boy who spends the day fishing on a pier. Definitely autobiographical, has a very nostalgic tone. Was there something therapeutic for you, Timothy, in writing that book?
It was great. I wasn't feeling too well. I don't think I took my bathrobe off for 3 days, and I wrote it in 72 hours. Basically, it was sat in front of the fire. I had a fireplace, dining room, and a kitchen, and a bed, and a typewriter. And it's 2007, and I hammered it out, and it was just great memories, and it had to do with just growing up. And I thought, well, I had talked with several writers about writing. Tim, write what you know about. That's what each of them would tell me about it. So I tried to do that. Plus, I let my imagination run. At first, it was a screenplay, my idea of a screenplay, and then it was turned into this short story. It's only 127 pages. It's a 2-hour read, basically. In fact, I think I should do it on an audio. So Brenda's helped me find a fellow in town, and we're going to try to do that. I haven't done that yet.
But it felt therapeutic to me.
Yes, it was very, very therapeutic. Creating the characters that I remember, and they're all real people. I met all of the people that are in there.
Do you long for those days? Do you look back at your youth with a sense of longing and nostalgia? Do you
Well,
like living there in your head?
yeah, why is that?
I
I don't
don't
know.
know because you're very content with your current life, but
Yes,
I get the feeling when I read the book that you like going back to that place in your life like a security blanket, like a warm feeling of belonging.
yes. It was. We had such a wonderful family. My brothers, my mother, my father, and his friends, and I recall lots of laughter, lots of hunting and fishing, and football games. And my dad was an art teacher at Santa Barbara High School, and he also ran the film on the football team. And Mike Maropoulos, one of the great football coaches. Sam Cathcart, who was a 49er. Sam Cunningham and his brother's a very famous quarterback.
So, Timothy, now that you've got the writing bug, are you going to write more books?
I have been, but we're so busy putting a steel roof and trying to fireproof this old adobe in the mountains of Big Sur because it's been there so long. In fact, it was built in the 1770s, and I'm the third owner in chain of title, and she's never burned. So she deserves a good lid, as we'd call it, you know.
Would you like to make more movies,
Yes,
miniseries?
I would love to make more movies. In fact, my manager is working very hard at trying to get me auditions, but they're so different now. Everything has to be on the screen like this. In fact, this is the place where I sit and I do auditions.
But
No
isn't
luck
that
yet.
great for you so you don't have to go there in person? Isn't it more convenient?
I don't know. I need other people to act with. It's hard for me to imagine. I need a director saying, well, this is the way it is. And I look into his eyes and I hear his voice and I see his body language, and that translates to me.
Yeah, I get that. I can see that it must be very difficult to do an audition, a self-tape, as they call it. It just doesn't compare to being there with the director in person.
I'm not very good at it, Harvey. Yeah. Anyway, that's what we do now. We just look in the camera and talk. So I haven't had the opportunity to book anything.
Oh, it'll happen. You'll see. I'm your good luck charm. Being on our show.
Oh, God, no. Your show is so famous. I looked it up and I was watching a lot of it. I know a lot of the people. And I just love what you're doing.
Well, I got to tell you, Timothy, it's been a real pleasure meeting you, having this opportunity to reminisce with you about your life, your career. Thanks for all the great performances. Thank you for writing the book. And thank you for taking the time to appear on our show. I loved it.
Right on. You're the best, Harvey Brownstone.
Right back at you. Our guest has been the wonderful actor, producer, and author Timothy Bottoms, whose new book, The Pier, is now available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time. Thank you to my producer, Steve Silver, my managers, Rick Marcelli and Robin Bragg Marcelli at the Marcelli Company in Hollywood, my director of programming, Robert Monaghan, my PR directors, Eileen Shapiro and Jimmy Starr, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.